Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at. Another session of Seven Eagle Groups, paid forward right now with a really awesome person, Jason Wilcox, former US Marine Corps. One man, I got my good man, Leo Schoolfield, back at it again, like Friday.
Always.
All right. Jason, why don't you got our audience right here? They want to know more. Tell us a bit of your background.
Yeah, I grew up in a military family. My dad served Vietnam vet. He was in the Marine Corps. Uh, both his brothers served Army and Navy. Um, my son served in the Army. He did a tour in the Middle East as well. My brother was in the Navy. I was in the Marine Corps Reserve, so never left the States. I was 3521 automotive mechanic, basically field mechanic, and signed up to late entry in high school and just wanted to serve my country. But that's the short story on the military side.
Got you. Leo, you got something for Jason?
Personal question. I was in the military and I was in the Navy too. What do you remember what ship he was on? By chance?
USS Chosin, I believe. Yeah, guided missile destroyer, if I recall. Yeah.
So my first question again, Jason. It's so nice to meet you. To kick it off, my first question would be like, while you were in the service, we all go through hardships. We all go through hard times. Were there any hardships that you went through and experienced that kind of touch on how you, developed into the person you are today?
Yeah, I think key and probably common for most folks, being in the military is a lot of time, downtime where you're bored, gives you a lot of time to think and reflect. For others that I know that served overseas as well, I think just some exposure to other parts of the world, recognition that what we have in the U.S. Is special and we need to protect and serve. But I think with the boredom gave me time to think about what I wanted in life. And when I got out, I had a better idea where my focus needed to be. For me, it was family, and then getting back into focus on technical and leadership.
Got you.
That's definitely something I'm trying to inquire too, because I have a lot of downtime and then I fill my car too much, and that's something like I feel like all of us vets go through. It's that specific time period. As soon as you transition out, you're like, man, I had to do all this in a record amount of time. Now I have to spread it out. I have to like give myself time. I normally have like from this schedule to this schedule, from 9 to 5 or from 7 to 1800. I have to work. And now after work, what do I do? And now it's like, okay, now I can kind of play with my own hours. What do I do after that? Did I work enough? Did I not work enough? And then my second question, to contribute to that one is hard skills and soft skills. Are there soft and hard skills that you developed while you were in the Marines that can also contribute into the person you are today?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Marine Corps was helpful in many of these, but other things that I've done in my life as well. I think from a hard skills perspective, you have to set a goal and then really focus on growing those. So I spent a lot of time studying. I read a lot of books today, even to today. So I think that's key, just growing your skill set. One thing I heard somebody say not long ago I thought was really interesting. When you're talking to others, you want to be interested in who they are, learning about them, but also be interesting. That's what helps with two-way dialogue, right? So I think hard skills to an extent help with that. So you've got some experience to share, wisdom, whatever that might be. Then on the soft skills side, I think, especially given the times we're in, right? I think a lot of social stuff going on, and I think just remembering to be respectful to your fellow human beings, right? Love one another, be respectful, grant grace. In the Marine Corps, learned a lot of leadership lessons, met a lot of people from all over the country. I grew up in a very small town in Washington and hadn't had that kind of exposure, right? And so that was eye-opening, just learning about the experience of other people and how different they were from mine, right?
That's one of the biggest factors that I learned in the Navy as well, especially, coming from Japan all the way over here, the people were just different. They're all quiet. Everybody was like to themselves. Whereas like you go to a mall here in Tampa or anywhere in the U.S., loud, everybody talking, it's always a conversation flowing. There it was just very quiet and respectful, and everybody respected each other's sense of peace. Um,
Right.
and then to go to the comments real quick, we have a question on: are there any book recommendations you have?
Oh man, I've read so many books. I guess my first recommendation, you should constantly be reading. If you don't like reading, audiobooks are great. There's so much knowledge and wisdom. You should always be growing. One of my more recent favorites, and that really helped me with my leadership growth, was probably Jocko Willink, right? Um, he's got several different books on leadership that are fantastic. Recommend all of those. He also operates a echelon front organization that helps leadership growth and does some consulting too. Simon Sinek is another favorite. He does a lot of YouTube videos, but he spent a lot of time with military folks just asking about leadership and how the military can be effective as a unit, and how leaders in the military bring people together to accomplish a mission. So those are a few thoughts there, but one of the more recent books I'm reading is just on how to write well, right? I don't like writing, but I realize with my role, I do have to do a lot of writing, and I want to be more effective at it. So, reading a book on how to do that better. So just always reading and growing.
Gotcha. That's good. Jason, I got one thing for you. I know we've touched on a lot of parts on, how were your days back in the Marine Corps, but I'm pretty sure, and my bad, I'm pretty sure we haven't touched what do you do right now? Maybe even after Marine Corps, what do you do right now? Where you at?
Yeah, so growing up, I would say my parents were serial entrepreneurs. So parents had all kinds of different businesses, tow truck company, car lot, gym. When I was about 10, my parents owned a computer company. So I was exposed to electronics and computers and that kind of thing very early on. So I did sales. We had a little store, built custom computers. Grandpa was a programmer. So kind of was exposed to it early, joined the Marine Corps, delayed entry my junior year in high school. When I got back out after about a year of active duty for training, kind of floundered around a little bit and then got back into tech. So I've been in tech again for 25-ish years.
Nice.
Been around the block. I've worked for Fortune 500s, for nonprofits, big and small companies. I ended up in the Seattle area about 20 years ago working for a Fortune 500. And eventually ended up in Nintendo. So I've been in Nintendo about 5 years. Interesting with that is one of the pieces of advice I always give is you always want to have a mentor. Mentor doesn't need to be somebody that'll be your mentor for 10, 15 years, but for this season in your life, you want to aim to have a mentor, somebody who's probably about 5 years ahead of you as far as where you want to be. So I was at a utility company, Puget Sound Energy, and was looking for an outside mentor. Got connected with a mentor. He worked at Nintendo, and he and I became friends after a few years, learned a lot from him, and he had a job open up underneath him, manager position, and I knew I would love working for him. So that's how I ended up in Nintendo. I wasn't even necessarily looking for a job in Nintendo. Happy to have one. I love working here. Right. But I wanted to work for Mike. And so I still report to him today. I'm now a senior manager. So I oversee 2 infrastructure teams, platform engineering team and a network team. Love the organization, great culture. And I think another piece of advice that comes from that is I'm happy to be a place where my leadership style fits the expectations of my manager. My performance is measured based on, my style, and it works well. So, don't hesitate to make a move if you need to, but I think key is working for somebody that understands you and supports you in your leadership style.
Got you. Just a follow-up question on that note, because that is true. Like I myself, I always get, it's good to be, internally, personally motivated, right? Personally, like internally inspired, but it's always best when you have someone that you can count on, someone that you could confide with. One quick question: what was the best advice that you got from your mentor?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. I get that to me is like a question asking, what's your favorite music or food, right? It
Right.
just depends on the context, right?
The most recent one. Let's
Um,
just have it the most recent one.
yeah, I'm into Dave Ramsey, if you know who he is. He's a radio host, national radio host, and does some financial stuff. One of the things he talks about early on, he met a billionaire and he was asking the billionaire some of the keys to success. And the billionaire told him, I got the perfect book for you, right? And Dave's, antsy to find out what this is. And he tells him it's a tortoise and the hare, right? The tortoise wins every time. So I think one of the most valuable lessons I've learned in life and in leadership as well is slow, steady, methodical, constant, right? You have to have a purpose and intent and just keep after it, right? This is not a sprint. So slow and steady wins the race every time, right? You get a lot of people, especially nowadays, things are so fast paced. Everybody wants it now, especially when you look at younger generation. I remember, right? You get out of the military, you're, maybe in your mid 20s, late 20s, and you want to get out in the professional workforce. You want to make things happen and you want to do it quick. You feel like maybe you're behind a bit. Because a lot of other folks may have been in the professional workforce 5-6 years ahead of you. Slow and steady though. If you try to rush it, you're gonna make big mistakes and regret it.
Got you. Got you. I mean, when you left, the military, what were some, like big mistakes? Were you, did you bump onto those mistakes? Did you kind of rush?
I've made so many mistakes in my life. Let's see. I think not having a good direction in my career early on, I could be a lot further ahead if I had had a little more clarity and intentionality behind what I was doing in my 20s. So I think make sure you write down your goals. They can change, right? But write them down. Make sure that every day you're taking another step closer, being the tortoise, right? Every day you're making progress. I think one of the other big things, talking about Dave Ramsey again, my wife and I have been debt free for about 15 years other than our mortgage. Being debt free has opened up so many doors of opportunity. And that's one of the things I stress, especially when I'm coaching folks in their 20s, stay out of debt. Debt is an anchor. And if you think about, luck favors the prepared, right? Well, if you're prepared, one of the things in being prepared is not having debt. That means additional doors are going to open. You can seize opportunities. If you had debt, you may not have. I wouldn't be at Nintendo now if I had debt. I took an opportunity at Puget Sound Energy as a contractor. It was a short 3-month contract. I could not have afforded to take that if I hadn't been debt free. And then that led to me meeting Mike and being at Nintendo. And so, yeah, I think that's
right. Leo, you got something?
So Jason, I could definitely relate to you on the debt thing because I'm currently in debt in my situation, and it is closing a lot of doors. I just want to know, from your perspective, after the military, when you started, applying for jobs and all that, what are some things that you would put on your resume that helped you stand out, I guess you could say, on your jobs, on applying to jobs, or things that you might look at in current resumes? And then to double up that question, I'd say how important to you is having a nice, well-stacked LinkedIn page?
Sure. First, I hate resumes. I hate writing them. I hate reading them. I've been on both sides of it as a hiring manager for many years, as well as writing them myself. I will say, to start with, the majority of the jobs I've ever gotten in my life have been through relationships. So first and foremost, if you're not working on relationships, resume isn't going to help as much. So first and foremost, relationships, build your network. LinkedIn is key to that today. As far as resumes go, I like clean and simple. Now, you can ask 100 people and you'll get 100 different opinions on what a resume should look like. But for me as a hiring manager, Andy Lasavita, he's an online personality, helps with resumes. I like him. He's got a template out there that's free if you look him up on YouTube or something. But he just has a quick little summary. Here are my primary skills that are applicable to the job I'm applying for, and some basic accomplishments related to those skills. Then you get into the work history with additional detail. You might accomplish some of that with a cover letter, Cover letters are kind of hit or miss as well, but that's what I like. So when I get an applicant, I'm going to scan that beginning section. If I see typos or anything that looks just awkward or funny, I'm going to quickly eliminate it, right? You know, when I've got job postings, I might get 10,000 applications, right? Like for our intern positions, we get over 11, 12,000 applications. I can't go through all those, right? So we've got to have a quick way to iterate through these before I narrow it down to a few final candidates. So that's tough with a resume. So first, just make sure spelling's good. You got a quick summary at the top. LinkedIn, yes. So after I look over a resume, if I'm interested in someone, I'm going to go in and start looking at their LinkedIn. What kind of posts do they have? Who are they connected with? Do they comment on things? I think something that a lot of people I see post things that are questionable as far as their professionalism. Be very careful about that, right? When I'm looking at those posts, I'm going to get an idea of somebody, if they're going to be a potential performance problem, maybe attitude problem, maybe don't fit certain ways, right? You got to be really professional up there, right? And I think Facebook and some of these other social media platforms, people have gotten used to just saying what's on their mind. Well, you got to be careful, right? You offend people, and that's how the world works.
Right.
Maybe a little old school, but.
No, you're good. That's, I mean, it is what it is, right? One quick question, because I know, like right now, here at Seven Eagle Group, we've got a lot of people. You know, I myself have been I work probably like 5-6 days in a week, speaking with vets and transitioning folks at the same time. A lot of folks are looking to break into tech. There are guys, I mean, there's a lot of, I'm MOSs in the military who is, are in tech, but there's the other half where they don't have any tech background. What would be your advice maybe for those folks who are trying to pivot, maybe even pivot really hard into tech?
Yeah, there are multiple pathways into tech. Tech is huge, right? You could be a web developer. You could do data analytics, you do data sciences. AI is a big up and coming thing.
Right.
Work for me, I'm in infrastructure. A lot of people don't know what infrastructure is. I can tell you how many job fairs I go to, and I help with the Nintendo hiring. And out of probably 300 or 400 people I've spoken to in these job fairs, I might have had 1 or 2 people ask about infrastructure. Nobody knows about it. So my point there is that there are a wide gamut of different jobs you can do. Now, this is my experience. What I usually suggest is you just need to get any job experience in tech you can. Just get your foot in the door. Oftentimes that'll be through a help desk job, which are typically not glamorous, right? Dealing with end users and all kinds of difficult problems. But you get your foot in the door. Once you've done that, start building relationships. Show yourself to be effective, to be trustworthy, right? With integrity. You've got good work ethic. And then over time, that will pay off. I think another thing, you've got a ton of resources out there today. When I was coming up, the internet was not a big thing, or didn't exist to any great extent yet. So I was still relying on buying books and, studying on my own. Today, you've got a plethora of free training videos, training material. I think there are colleges out there that have put all their courses online for free. Obviously, you don't get the degree by taking them, but you've got all that material. You can start up your own lab at home if you want to be a developer, right? Python's big, Java's big. Go out and start doing some projects at home. I've got one of my engineers, he does a lot of stuff at home doing home automation. He builds art with his hands and uses different coding languages to change how these things work, like lighting in his house, just all kinds of crazy stuff. So look for ways that you can implement tech personally or as a hobby as well, and that builds up your experience too.
Nice. I appreciate that. Maybe by next time someone asks me, what they should do, just listen to Jason Wilcox. I spoke with him last Monday. He's got real good advice. But yeah, that's right. Probably, and at the same time, that's what I told the folks. Like, self-study is a big key. Cert is good. Certifications are good. Education is good as well. But at the same time, like, experience is king in this industry. All right. Leo, you got something?
Yes, I do. So, Jason, this is going to be a big question, and I just want to know, right? When it came to you reaching your goals, going into the military, coming out of the military, already knowing what you want to do, what was your biggest motivation? Like, what drove you to achieve the success that you have today?
I think relationships with people, right? Money's good in tech. So, money, especially when you're younger, is a big factor, right? As you're building your career. But I wasn't making good money until my late 30s, right? And it took time, so you got to put in the time. But when you start to make a little more money, you start your desires and what you want out of your career start to shift a little bit, right? Because the bills are taken care of. So I think for me, the most rewarding part of my job is doing things like this, trying to get back. I've had so many people help me in my career throughout my life. I want to give back, right? So I'm involved in some other nonprofit things, helping out anywhere I can, doing stuff like this. I would encourage anybody that sees this, hey, reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you have questions, I can help you in any way, please reach out. So I think that's what I feed off of now. Yeah, it's rewarding.
Got you. Got you. Maybe just because Leah just throw it in one big. Maybe just a final question for me. What would be your best advice for transitioning service member right now? Maybe guys who are about to leave, the service 6 months out. Maybe some would be by next week. What would be your best advice?
I think I'd suggest a couple things. So first, I was only active duty a year and then went into the reserves. So as far as transition goes, my experience is probably a lot different than any of your active duty folks that are transitioning. But talking to my son and his transition, right? I've got some insight through that as well.
Mhm.
But I think one thing Jocko Willink has talked about is that when you get out of the service, you need to have a mission, right? Your mission now was in the service. It's now something new. What is your new mission? So that's part of goal setting, right? We talked about that. Make sure you've got a new mission, right? Um,
Mhm.
I think that's key. Lost the other thought I had. Yeah, build your network, have a mission, and just get after it, right? Don't sit on your laurels. Oh, I remember. One of the things, talking to my son, he went to college right out of service, and he was a few years older than everybody else. And then he went into his professional job. He's got about a year in his professional job as a consultant now.
Nice.
And several of the folks there are a few years ahead of him and they're younger, right? That was a big struggle for him, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
one of the conversations we had just a few weeks ago was the experiences that you've had are so unique that those folks haven't, right? So take time to reflect back on your time in the service, the things you learned that are of value and are unique in the workplace, in the professional workplace, right? And that
Mhm.
will actually differentiate you from some of the other folks you're working with. So don't forget that your time in the service is valuable and that knowledge is unique. So leverage it.
100%. 100%. Leo, any final words for Jason?
Um, just thank you, Jason. You like changed in this whole little conversation. You kind of like switched my whole mindset, and now I understand like at the what I should do to help myself become a better person. And if you guys haven't, for all you guys who are watching this, definitely add this man on LinkedIn. I know I am because there's a lot of advice you have, and I'm just gonna keep picking your brain every day about it.
Happy to
Um,
help. And like I said, anybody else, the invite's open. So ping me.
got you. Got you. But again, Jason, we appreciate you, sparing a few minutes today to, there you go. From Cody Clark, everyone has their own pace. Control what you can control. That's really good.
Amen.
Amen.
Exactly.
Exactly, right? Again, man, Jason, appreciate you a lot. Like, it's paying it forward, right? And maybe it's time for us. I'm on the same boat, trying to give back on the folks. A lot of the folks that we have right now, like every year, there's a couple hundred thousands needing our help. These are very anxious times for them trying to navigate these waters, and Jason's here, Leo's here, I'm here. Everyone here at Seven Eagle Group is behind your back. Hit up Jason Wilcox, everyone, give up a connect on LinkedIn, Leo and myself, and we'll do our best to help you guys and, maybe answer any questions that we may for you. Right.
Thank you guys for what you do. Really appreciate how you're giving back. It's a good reminder to everybody else out there as you make your way in your career. Make sure you take time to give back.
100%. Jason, we appreciate you. We'll keep in touch. Seven Eagle Group appreciates this, and we'll see you around.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Take care, all.